Hello people of the internet, my name is xKANAL. This is going to be my general summary of the gameplay update for 6.85 in Dota 2. Now, a lot of other people have done an entire update. I even tried doing one, but this is actually the third time we're trying to record this. But I feel like there's not enough in here for a full update analysis to be relevant. And I just wanted to go over some of the real key updates. All of the general updates are pretty key. Purge no longer deals bonus damage to summon units. Now, this mainly applies to Warlock with his Warlock Golems. Obviously, you can't one-shot them with just Fusel Blade anymore, which is a great buff for him. Whether I think it's going to make a major difference, I don't think so. It'll help, it definitely makes him better, but I don't think it makes a major difference in the grand scheme of things. Siege Creeps now behave like normal lane creeps for spell targeting rules. Siege Creeps now have 85% magic resistance. So this is a nerf. Oh, well, the main things that these apply to are Hand of Midas, Pudge Hook, and a Marana Arrow. Those are the three main things. You can, as Chen and Enchantress, now dominate them and use them in a push, which is a pretty cool thing for them to do. Sometimes they'd rather have other creeps though, so it's not a big deal. And it is also a nerf to Gyro and Dragonite, I believe. I think there might be a few others who could damage siege creeps with their spells. So a lot of things going on here. I think the main thing to remember though is that you can no longer hook past them with Pudge, and you can no longer arrow past them, or spear, or whatever the fuck she throws. So those are the main big deals there. In this little section here, it is all about Ancients. Essentially, they're stronger now, they do more damage, and they can tank more damage. And this mainly is a nerf to stacking camps because of this dude here, the Dragonhide aura, provided by the Black Drakes, which is the it's a sort of a buff to Chen, but not really, because it's only giving 2 armor, which is what you get from Ring of Basilius anyway. So it's not that, I'm pretty sure it's Ring of Basilius you get it from, but it's not that big of a deal. It's mainly a nerf to Gyro again, and other ancient killers who kill stacks of ancients with their abilities. It doesn't affect heroes who cleave though, so Sven and Anti-Mage are the two most likely, and PA kind of, who are more than likely going to be buying Cleave. So it doesn't affect them, so it's kind of a buff to them. It does affect TA moderately, but so long as you don't stack it to 5 times, it shouldn't make that big of a deal. Anyway, moving on to heroes. The first hero I wanted to note is Anti-Mage. Now he has a lot going on. Blink distance, even though there's only 2 notes here, he has a lot going on. Blink distance has been rescaled from 1000 at level 1 to 925, and then lower at the subsequent levels, but the same at max level. Now this is a nerf to his blink, obviously, but it's mainly a nerf to his laning stage. Not just because of the lower levels, but because you generally want to go a 1-1-1 skill build with stats until level 6. Because you won't be using your blink that much, or you don't need the lower cooldown. But now you might need the distance. If you get offensively tri-laned, you're going to need to have blink maxed ASAP. Or not necessarily maxed, but at a higher level. You can't really go the 1-1-1 build. Or at least we don't think we can. We're going to have to try it out in game. The 900 blink range might be just enough to get out anyway, so we're just going to see. Mana Void stun rescale is not that big of a deal. The stun was only sort of to cancel TPs, but it isn't, not so much for the disable itself, so it isn't that big of a deal. But what is a big deal is that I will do this, and I'll go down here to Heart. Heart at Rask has been buffed to restore 4% of your HP per second rather than 3. So this is a good buff for Anti-Mage, especially once he gets a heart and he's snowballing into the late game. Manta has also been buffed. You get the lower duration. Lower cooldown, same duration, and lower mana cost, which is definitely not necessarily an issue for Anti-Mage, but it's definitely a help. Means you might be able to get off a blink in a clutch situation or a mana void, you don't know, but it's good. It's good anyway. So he's received quite a few buffs, as well as a lot of other things, like the common mids getting nerfed. And I feel anti-mage is still as strong as he once was, but spell it right, you mung, anti. Yeah, so that's anti-mage. The fact that the common mids did get nerfed could be a sign that you won't see anti-mage as much, but I feel like we're still going to see him. He's still very strong hero. Second is Batrider. Or second in the list is Batrider, not second overall. Batrider, his flame break damage has been reduced from 50 per second to 25 per second at level 1. But the duration has been increased by quite a lot. So with the combination of Sticky Napalm and the fact that almost all of his damage is damage over time, this is generally a buff overall to his damage. Yeah, Flame Break is now a good spell compared to what it was before. So that's that, and also Batrider has a new Ags. So if you buy Agnum Scepter on him, Flaming Lasso grabs his target as well as the target nearest ally within 400 range, which is a moderate range. It's a lot larger than you might expect it to be, and the secondary target is then tethered to the first. It also causes Lasso to deal 100 damage per second. So I feel like Agnum Scepter is not necessarily core, but a very viable item. It's not as situational as a friggin' Tusk, but it is, and it isn't as strong as a Tiny, but it's sitting in that upper portion. So it is a good item, but a lot of the time, especially in competitive, you're going to need to see Batrider get like a Yules, or probably not a Yules so much because it's shit now, but like a BKB or a Shivers to help his team. If he's snowballing, Ags will be the bee's knees. It'll be a very good item. Also, it doesn't break Lincoln Sphere. The tethered target does not break Lincoln Sphere. Only the original target does. So that is quite a key factor in that ability. Next is Bloodseeker. The thirst scaling has been changed from 100% to 75%. Now this is quite a big deal because it means that now you can actually sit at 75% health and not give him any bonus damage. I'm assuming that it's not exactly the same, so it's not like you'll give him 0 damage and then when you jump to 75 you'll give him that 25% worth of damage. I'm assuming that's not what it is, but it's still a nerf to him anyway because no one's ever really sitting at 100% all the time, at least I don't think so in most games. So it's definitely a nerf to his laning phase for sure, and his damage. The Blood Rage heal has also been nerfed by 6%, which isn't, in the grand scheme of things, that big a deal, because it's still 25% at level 4, but it just nerfs his jungling, I think. I think that's the main thing that it'll nerf. Next is Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter track now only provides vision of the target rather than the area around it, which is a big deal. Before you could track one person, now the whole team is tracked, especially when you're sieging high ground. So this, I've got a video I'll show that'll show how that works. But yeah, it's nerfed his ultimate a lot, basically, in my opinion. The amount of gold you get has also been reduced, but not by a huge amount. And this is only allied gold. You still get the same amount of gold as a bounty hunter, but yeah. So that's that. Bounty hunter's been nerfed. I feel like he's tier 2, tier 3 now, but he's still as strong as he is in the early game, just not much as the mid-late game. Now next was, I believe, Invoker, that's right. Intelligence growth has been increased from 3.2 to 4. It is now tied with Pugner, I believe, at the highest intelligence growth, which is great. However, accelerate speed damage has also been increased. Agnum Scepter now adds 1 level of stats provided by Quaspex and Exhort to all invoked spells, which is cool. And Max Deafening Blast now retains its normal location UI, which is all buffs, all good things, right? Agnum Scepter is to compete with Octarine Core. Accelerate speed damage is to make it not bad, and intelligence growth is for the late game. Same with Deafening Blast. Might make him very better in the late game, but if I still press my BKB button, I'm still going to be immune to almost all his damage. And not only that, he's still got the freaking like 40 base damage or whatever he has in the beginning of the game. So I still feel like Invoker's a bad hero. In all honesty, he's still a bad hero. Until they buff his early game, until they buff Cold Snap or the Forge Spirits or something, just something with early game spells, he's still going to be bad. After that, who did I go to? Legion Commander, I think it was. Yes. The base damage has been increased by 4, which is great for in lane and trading. You're such a good trader as Legion Commander. Overwhelming odds reduced from 18 to 15. Super good again. Just using it in lane, especially in the off lane, it'll help you get last hits. Press the attack cast time reduced from 0.3 to 0.2. Just a it's just a good thing for when you're ganking. Because I tapped W for my press the attack, double tap it, so I use the phone hard to cancel the backswing of the animation, but it is definitely a buff for her. And then there's the bug fix. But I don't think Legion Commander is going to be top tier, but there are a lot of good things about her that has been changed. Just makes her a bit air overall. The Shrek base damage reduced by 4, making him a weaker mid laner. Lightning Storm distance reduced by like 200 or so, also making him a weaker mid laner. And Lightning Storm damage has been reduced, also making him a weaker mid laner. So he's still a good support, or as good as a support as he was. He still farms really fast because, I mean, you generally use your ultimate for your farming, but it just means you can't Lightning Storm you from 2,000 miles away, which is great. And I think this is the buff that, I mean, the nerf that the Shrek needed. It's not an overkill either, so I like it. Lena Light Strike Array with damage reduced from 120 at level 1 to 80 at level 1 and 200 at level 4. And Laguna Blade damage reduced. Now, there's a lot of sort of nerfs around Lena. Everyone knows that you get Yules with her. And the cast range has been reduced as well, so making her combo a lot harder to land. Especially with Lena being as squishy as she is definitely going to be a lot harder to land that combo, and it's going to be way less effective with the fact that it's only 850 at level 9 now, not 950. I mean, 850 at level 16 now, not 950. And the Light Strike Away is generally left at 1 point for a while, especially because you'll be maxing Dragon Slave, and you'll be definitely maxing Dragon Slave now with this change, because Dragon Slave has gone unchanged. So it is definitely a nerf to Lena. It's a nerf to her combo. It's not so much a nerf to her in lane. She still has a like super long range, and it just is. I think it's a comfortable nerf for her. Her laning presence is still going to be really strong though, so that's something you just got to watch out for. Next was Naga. No, Nature's Prophet. Nature's Prophet sprout cast time has been reduced by nearly half, which is awesome. You can now sprout TP a lot faster. You know, you sprout capture people and it won't miss. The mana cost has been reduced as well, and you see this with a lot of skills in this patch, as they've been reduced to double digits, especially in the first few levels, like Elder Titan and Bane were. So it's great to see some of these lower level abilities getting lower mana costs, because it just means that the abilities are stronger and you can use them in lane. Nature's Call treants now move faster, but they have reduced vision, and I think this is a good trade-off because you can scout to more places with them for sure. And the base attack time of the greater treant has been reduced. I only saw one greater treant in 6.84, which was right at the start of the patch in a stream, because people were trolling. So yeah, Wrath of Nature Aghanim Scepter upgrade now applies a 4-second buff on the units it hits, which spawn the extra treant if the unit dies during that time, which is the buff it needed. It makes Aghanim Scepter a lot better now. It's not just sort of random, because before you would have needed a refresher to actually do anything with this. But this is just general good buffs for Nature's Prophet. This is making him quite the good hero now. He is coming back, boys. The rat is back. Okay, Ogre Magi. Base armor increased by 1. This is blowing people away. Everyone's like, oh my god. But it's a pretty big deal, because Ogre Magi has some of the highest base regen, armor, and damage at level 1. For sure. Off lane, possible now. Bloodlust attack speed has been increased as well. Now I really think that the skill build is definitely ignites, stun, ignites, stun, ultimate, then bloodlust. Just because you can really get a lot out of that 30 attack speed, especially with multicast chance. Next was PA. The Stifling Dagger now plays on hit attacks. Now, there's a big, God, what's this Reddit called again? Reddit post that I'll link in the description. There's been a few changes, as you can see, have been crossed out. Like, you can no longer cleave with it, but you can do things like Orb of Venom and shit like that. There's a lot of interesting mechanics going on here. So if you want to read it, I'll link it in the description. It's definitely a good read. Yeah, you can see some funny shit as well. Okay, now next I want to talk about Puck. Now, the reason why I want to talk about Puck, A, I like her. I'm a bit of a fan of Puck. But B, I also think that Puck will be a lot stronger now. Not only because she got 3 buffs, or it's got 3 buffs. The speed increase is great, and the cooldown is very noticeable in the game when you play. The Dream Coil cooldown, I feel like, should still be lower though. I think it needs to be 65 or 70, not 75. It's just sort of too long. I think once it gets 65, I think it'll be good. Other than that, or they change the spell to make the spell stronger. But now that the other mid lanes, such as Lena and Shrek, are weaker in lane for sure, like Lena, you can dodge her Dragon Slave. I mean, her Q. God, what's it called? It's just Dragon Slave. Yeah, her easy. And like Lesh, like you don't have to dodge his. It's not as easy to. It's not as hard. You don't have to dodge his lightning, and then once you dodge it, it stuns you. So yeah, basically because the other mids are weaker, Puck should be stronger. So I'm keen to see some more Puck, but there's yet to be seen a lot of. After Puck, we're moving on to another strong mid laner with Quap. She has essentially gone unchanged. Her ultimate does 20 less damage now, which is, in the grand scheme of things, quite negligible, and that's only at max level as well. It's still the same at level 1. So Quap is still as strong as she was, and still as strong and still as big of a game impactor as before. Ags is still strong, it's still on a 40-second cooldown. We can't forget about Quap, she's still really good. Spectre also received 2 buffs. First one was Desolate, now works on non-hero units like creeps, and it is pretty good for farming speed in the early game before you get Radiance or other big item for like the Ursa Bears and the Centaur camps. But the big one is Dispersion now inflicts damage before reductions and returns it as the same damage type. It's similar to Blade. Oh no, it's not like Blade Mail at all actually. It's what happens, right, is say you'll take a Finger of Death. If you have any bonus magic reduction, you will take the damage reduced by that magic reduction, but Lion will take the dispersion damage as however much damage Finger of Death would have done to you without that magic resistance. So you'll essentially be taking a lot less damage, and you'll be returning more. So it's just an overall buff to the ability, huge overall buff. Storm Spirit receives some big nerfs. Static Remnant mana cost has gone up to 100, meaning that at all levels, which means that you'll probably be never seeing the 3 points in pool build anymore. It'll always be max remnant and a charge, because you need it. It's just such a waste of mana, efficiency, and damage. Static Remnant Unobstructed Vision reduced from 800 to 600. It's minor, it's not game breaking, but it is noticeable, especially for those really strong Storm Spirit players. Ball Lightning base mana cost increased from 15 plus 7% to 30 plus 8%, which is, I noticed that a lot in a Storm Spirit game I played the other day, and it is significant. It is definitely significant. It means you can't do as much with him, for sure. Tickies got some big nerfs. Basically, now you can destroy mines without blowing up. You get 10 gold for them. They do less damage individually, but he can plant more. But that means there's more for you to mine, so you can get more gold from them. They no longer have a max count, which is kind of a buff and kind of a nerf at the same time, because the more he places, the more you can farm if you're smart about it. And stasis traps no longer block neutral spawns. Yeah, mines and stasis traps no longer block neutral spawns, which is whatever. It's kind of annoying, but it's good in the long run. And landmines no longer stack directly on top of each other, so it makes it a bit easier to spot them out. Okay, Terrorblade. temporarily removed from captain's mode, that's when you know shit's going down. Reflection now affects all enemies in a 900 AoE, which means he's now got his first team fight spell, which is great, other than just clicking on shit. The reflection cooldown has been rescaled and it's been reduced. The slow has been reduced. There's been a change to his illusions. Now it's obvious which one is the illusion. They all become metamorphosis when he activates it, so you don't have to worry about having to pump out as many illusions as you can while you have it on. And the Thundercast range has gone up. So overall, I think this is great. Obviously, quite a few buffs to him. I think this is more buffs to his mid game, but he is still. I still think he's just not tanky enough. He needs strength. Give me strength. So Terrorblade still pretty average, I think. In my opinion, he's still going to be pretty average. Tusk, who we saw a lot of in the last patch, his mana cost has gone up on Ice Shards, which is, I think, is the biggest effect, because now you can't spam it anywhere near as much as you wanted to. It used to be 120, and that's when no one ever picked him. Now it's 115 at max level, so I'm curious to see if he's still going to be picked. I think he might be, mainly because of the way Snowball works, and people are getting quite skilled with him now, but we have to find out. Frozen Sigil no longer goes to spell immunity. I don't know why it ever could, but it did, and now it doesn't. So it's great. Nice. And then they buffed his Aghanim Scepter. It does 200 damage. We don't know what kind of damage at the time of this video. It doesn't actually say in the game, but it's still a shit item regardless. Doesn't make up for all this, that's all I'm gonna say. Aghanim Scepter no longer improves Flesh Golem, it now increases Decay Strength Steal from 4 to 10, which is pretty big. You could steal like 30 strength at once, most commonly, which is pretty big. You'll be tanky, but I still think Ags is not. It's still very situational. I think as a support, because that's how you get played in the competitive, it'll be really seen. Kind of like Naga Ags. Still good, but really seen. Tombstone now requires a constant number of attacks to be destroyed, and Soul Rip can heal for a fixed value. So I feel like this is a nerf to him. No, it's a buff to his late game, but a nerf to his early game. That's the way I'm looking at it. It's sort of a nerf overall because he peaks in the early game, but I sort of really have to see it in games. Winter Wyvern's Curse no longer goes to spell immune. No longer affects spell immune enemies in the area. So you can pierce through spell immunity with attacking the first one. With casting it on the BKB unit. I think this is the good balance for Winter Wyvern, because you can still lock down their carry if they have a BKB, but you can't force their carry to attack their supports. So I think it's a very balanced skill now. Maybe a slightly longer cooldown, but overall I think it's quite balanced. And then moving on to items. Now, Storm Spirit is one of the main affected by Bloodstone here, but obviously all Bloodstone carriers will be affected, and it's the fact that just respawn time reduction has changed to 4 per charge to 3 per charge. So it's going to be a lot harder to snowball and protect your base if you die. The Bloodstone no longer reduces gold lost on death, which is a pretty big deal, especially when you're snowballing out of control. And it no longer grants vision and experience where the owner died, which is a minor thing, but it's still a nerf to the item. So I really think the Storm Spirit has been quite well nerfed this patch. Already talked about Eagle Scepter, but it's still really significant that the range has been reduced. Oh! Glimmercate, fade time increased from 0.4 to 0.6. Pretty big. Now purgeable, really big. Excuse me. Now magic resistance has been reduced from 55 to 45, which is a pretty big deal. Oh. Excuse me. Which is a pretty big deal, because you're almost immune to magic resistance with that. Considering that magic resistance doesn't stack, like it diminishingly stacks, it's very high. The cast range has been reduced, but the mana cost has been reduced also. So it's much more balanced now. I still think it's going to be a good item. I think it will always be a good item so long as you can cast it on your teammates. But yeah. Harder to Rask also got a buff. I think I already talked about this. Mentor Style, Medallion, and Solar Crest did get nerfed quite heavily. The fact that you can't use it through spell immune enemies, I think, is very fair, because I think it was stupid that an 1,000 gold item could go through a 4,000 gold item, and it reduces armor values by half on Roshan, which is a pretty big deal, because that's all Medallion was freaking bought for, was Roshan. So it also kind of inadvertently buffs minus armor heroes like TA. TA will still be taking Roshan twice as fast. I think she's still really strong, especially because she's gone unchanged. Town Portal Skull has been reduced in cost further, so now there's almost no excuse to never have one. It's so cheap now. And the Ring Up Health and Voidstone have gone down in cost. Battle Fury is cheaper now by 50 gold, so it's a pretty big deal. And then that's all the main things. And Veil has been reduced as well, but those are all the main things in this patch. I'll just check this. There isn't anything I missed in my little notes here. Nope. Yeah, so those are the main factors in this patch. I think relating to the meta we've just had and the meta we're going to have. Obviously, all the changes matter, so I definitely recommend that you go into these patch notes and read them for yourself. But overall, those are the main points if you just wanted a brief summary of the main meta heroes. Anyway, so my name is xKANAL. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.